Okay, welcome to lesson number 3, working with numbers in Python. So, numbers, well, we've just looked at, in lesson number 2, we looked at strings and what you can do with strings and how they are being processed in Python. Now we will be looking at how numbers work in Python. So, basically, there are two types of numbers in general. So they're the what we would call whole numbers, like 1 or 5, and decimal numbers like 1.2 or 3.4. So these are different numbers, and these are treated differently in Python. So whole numbers are called integers in many program languages, and in the Python program language they are called int for integer, and the decimal numbers are called floating point numbers or float for short. So this difference has some implications when doing multiplications and additions, etc. in Python. So let's look at this. So if we do 1 plus 2 equals 3, and it returns, as you can see, an integer. If you want to know what is the exact type that's being returned, you can ask for the type. So by actually typing type and then doing 1 plus 2, and then it returns class int. So you know that the result is an integer. So what will happen if we add a float to an integer? So let's say we do 1 plus 2.3. Let's see. That returns 3.3, which should be a float. Let's see if that's correct. So type 1 plus 2.3. That should return a float. Class float. Yes, that's correct. But this also, the result is cast, as we call it, to a float when one of the numbers is a float. And this also happens if the one of the numbers is a float, which is a round number. So let's say we do 1 plus 2.0, so which is a round number, but the notation we use is a float. If we press enter, I expect it to return 3.0. Yes, 3.0, and that's float. So in some programming languages you specifically have to give the type that you want for the numbers and also for the return value. But in Python it's being inferred. So if you say 1 integer plus 2.0, which is a float, then Python will automatically infer that it's that one number is a float, and then the result will also be a float. So this is also true for other operations, like let's say multiplication. So let's do 1 times 2.0 returns 2.0, while 1 times 2 returns 2 as an integer. Same is for division, but that's a little bit more tricky, as we can see. So if we do 1 divided by 2, let's see what this returns. This returns a float. So from two integers, the return value can be a float. Let's check if it's actually float. I know it's float, but let's just be clear about it. Divided by 2. Yes, that's a float. So if we don't want to have a float returned, we can use some functions like the round function. So we can say we want 1000 divided by 33. That's 30.30 something. But we just want to have the rounded value. In this case that would be 30. We can use the round function, round 1000 divided by 33, and that should return 30. And in this case an integer has been returned, so let's check for that. Type, yes, that's an integer. So what if we would want to have a float returned? Well, we could have this returned simply by making one of the numbers a float, like this one. No, not true. Sorry. Oh yes, of course. The round function, as its rounding function, only returns integers. Yeah, what's the point of making it float? So if you really would want to force the result to be a float, you could use what we call casting. We could cast the integer that's being returned by the round function. We could cast it to a float. So we could do this, float, and then it would return a float. So that would be something like if we want the integer number 1 to become a float instead of an integer, we could do this. The other way around, if we have a float and we want it to be an integer, we can also do this by using the int and then 1.0, and that would return 0 as 1 as an integer. So we can move from float to int and from int to float. You have to be careful, because if you have a float that's 1.5 for instance, and you cast it to an int, then you will lose the decimals. So 1.5 will become 1. Also 1.7 for instance will also become 1. So you will just lose everything behind the decimal. If you would want 1.7 to be an integer that's rounded up, so 1.7 becomes 2, then you should use the round function again, 1.7. Okay, so this is going back and forth between the data, the types of the numbers. What else is there to know? Yes, of course, division by 0 is not possible. So if you divide 10 by 0, it will return an error, and that's called the zero division error, which is sometimes very useful to use. Let's see. Yes, powers, how to use powers in Python. Let's say 2 times 2, so 2 times 2. So the 2 to the power 2 is 4, is the same as 2 to the power, that's double star 2. Just to make this more clear, 2 to the power 3, that should be 8, that's this. 2 to the power 4, that's 16. And in the same way, we could take the square root because the square root is nothing more than, let's say, the square root of 16 is to the power 0.5. And as you can see here, if you take the square root like this, you will have a float returned. So in this case, you could cast this to an int, just to get a integer 4 back. Let's see. One more thing that's already interesting to know: you can sum up a group of numbers. Let's say you have 1 and 2, and you have a 3 and a 4. Yes, and you want to have these summed up. That can be done using the sum function. And then you have to put them in square brackets as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it sums them up, and that's 10. Alright, one more thing, you can combine numbers with strings using the format function again, and that's something I would like to show. So let's say you want to say, I have so many apples, and then format, and then you can say, I have 10 apples. Enter, and as you can see, the 10 that has been that's an integer in the format function has been cast to a string automatically by the format function. So you don't have to, you can, but you don't have to enter the 10 here as a string. That's not necessary. It will work, but you don't have to. The format function does it. That was something I would like to show you still, and that makes the connection to the working with text. So these are the basic things you need to know when working with numbers that I can think of right now on the top of my head. That's it for now. I suggest you play around with it, with the things I've explained so far, and then we'll start using all these simple principles in the next lessons. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you like this video by giving a thumbs up or leaving some comments in the comment section below. Thanks, and see you in the next video.